Good evening, everypony, and welcome to Commentary's Magic Stream on today, Sunday, April 5th, 2020. I am, as always, Grand Paws.
Big Cheese.
Arcat and
Ivory Starlight.
Who's managed to retain their sanity so far?
I never had any.
I had a lot of fun on April 1st. That was very amusing. Except for the part where someone put me in the feelings forum. I was most displeased to discover this.
We have proof that you were in the feelings forum.
I thought you did that yourself.
I mean, he did it on April 1st himself.
I thought he put himself in there on his own.
No, someone I know changed the channel name on me, and upon realizing this, I fled as quickly as possible.
But not quickly enough.
Evidently not. I dispute that your photographic evidence is true. It's a deep fake.
Uh-huh. Well, while we all stay here, sheltered in place in our various regions, to stay safe during this COVID crisis, and we encourage, of course, all other players to do the same, please stay safe, take care of yourselves. We thought it would be appropriate to take inspiration from the goings-on around us and talk about other viral things tonight. Please don't be mad.
I'm a little mad, but I'll let it go.
Puns are love. Puns are life.
I can't be having any of this, Silver Quill. Does he know you're infringing on his gimmick?
I don't know if he does. Also, I can never hold a candle to that man's pun game.
I mean, that's true.
His puns come out of nowhere when you least expect them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he is a dangerous person to be drinking anything around.
Very true. So, tonight we're going to be taking a look at some viral decks over the course of the game. And we'll get into that here in a moment. And then once we've had a chance to kind of review those decks and talk about what made them popular, we'll also talk about an upcoming event and maybe a couple tips and tricks that can help you, which would be OnlineCon 2020.
Formerly known as BabsCon 2020, but hey.
Not to be confused with LineCon 2020. Or maybe to be confused with LineCon 2020, since that's usually what the first day of BabsCon turns into anyway.
But where are the lines? It's not a LineCon if there's no lines.
You can stand in line behind your computer or something, I guess.
I mean, I just have to be 6 feet away from the nearest person.
A line of a single person.
Dude, can you imagine if BabsCon actually went through and everyone had to be 6 feet apart? The line would wrap around the hotel multiple times.
I think the Hyatt would actually just say, "You guys are done, get out of our hotel."
They probably would.
Yeah, probably. Little strips of tape every 6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just fine. Anyway.
Anyway. Over the course of the game, there have been several widely known decks that just about every player knows because they're so prevalent that they appear in play groups all over the world and they make frequent showings at events, whether these be local championships, major conventions, continentals, whatever it happens to be.
Or even just it's Friday, we're getting together to play a couple rounds.
It's true. Even local play groups. The big question you have to ask for each of these decks is, why were these decks so popular? What was it that made them take off and get such uptake and such acceptance by players of different skill levels, different geographic areas, different play styles? What is it that made them so universally accepted?
Well, I've got at least one common thing.
What's that?
That all of these decks demonstrate. They're all fairly powerful, arguably tier 1 decks. And whenever you looked at a tournament result, and when these things were prevalent in the meta, they tended to be present and they tended to be towards the upper end of the standings, if not at the top.
So you'd have a deck that would be competitive and would often do well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's certainly a feather in its cap.
And these are not recent developments either, the fact that there are decks that have this much uptake. In fact, it was probably more common back in the day to see some of these viral decks take off because the community was a little more active and discerning in terms of the decks that they ended up running. Also, the card pool was smaller.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say that.
Yeah, the card pool being smaller definitely lent itself to seeing perhaps a smaller range of decks that were more popular back in the day, merely because there were less options as to what you could build.
Yeah,
One day I'll get my Apple Stars control deck off the ground.
No, you won't.
No. I don't believe it.
It just meant that it was more likely you'd be able to approach a solved metagame, or at least something close to it. It's much more difficult to do that now. Also, hi Fanman, thank you. As far as I know, all of us are staying well.
Yep.
Physically well, mentally I've never been well.
Same.
That explains the hissing. All right, kick us off. Take us back through time.
All right, we're going to go back to, let's see, what is this? 2012, I believe? No.
No, 2014.
Yeah, about
The
2014.
game wasn't even around. 2012, that was what? Alpha set?
No, that was pre-alpha, because the game came out in December 2013, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Alpha would have been Gen Con in summer of 2013. So
Ooh. All right. Went a little bit too far.
actually, that would have been technically beta because the Alpha premiere set came after that. Whatever, we don't talk about that.
Whatever. Time Machine went a little bit too far. Anyway,
Do we have the song? Do we have the music queued up?
no,
Oh,
we do
it would
not.
have been, it would have been good. And we
That-
also probably would have gotten C indeed. So
Yeah, someone would have yelled at us for that. Anyway, back to mid 2014 with a little deck known as Ballroom Blitz. So what is this? At its core, this is a yellow-white aggro list. I think I would actually go so far as to call this glass cannon aggro, because even though there wasn't a ton of interaction at the time, this packs like none of it. Like,
I mean, you've got
it's-
Standstill.
that's about as close as you're gonna get, yeah. But this thing has like no defensive tools. What does this rely on to win? It just goes ridiculously fast. And it does so on not a whole lot of action tokens. Like, even by modern standards, this is still pretty efficient. And as we look at the cards in this deck, you might look at some things. Yes, Standstill is some level of disruption. There is the Critter Cavalry to try to make sure that you win face-offs. And then there's that staring contest at the end. And you're looking at that and going, well, that's a defensive tool. No, it's not. That's actually an offensive tool, because you don't use that in hopes of winning. You use that putting your Forest Owl forward and going against the biggest threat that the opponent has to offer. And you fully expect to lose this, because then the Owl goes back to your hand and you play it for 1 AT, thus moving it for cheaper than you normally would be able to. Move, quote unquote.
Hacks.
Yeah. On the off chance that you win that face-off, well, oops, I guess they lost their biggest threat.
You're also forgetting that Guidance Counselor is best disruption this game.
Banned card.
So I think that
It wasn't banned yet.
I mean, yes, but something I was just thinking about is that look at all the cards in these deck. It's all like pure aggro, and then you come to Guidance Counselor, who's not an aggro card
Nope.
at all. You're
Nope.
like, this card was so good that a Glass Cannon aggro deck was like, I need that.
Still has to run it, yeah.
I need copies of it.
Yeah, a full 3-of. Like Eagle doesn't even get 3-of.
Nor does the lady herself. Like, yikes. Okay? But there's a reason that card is banned, and she's very sorry, but she understands why. Well, why was this deck notable? Ballroom Blitz, I believe, is notable because it's one of the very first aggro decks, along with its slightly younger sister Pegasus Explosion, where action token efficiency became a primary goal while designing the deck. It was, in a word, woke.
It's kind of appropriate given the main.
I know, right? It's like,
Fluttershy's been secretly woke for years. You thought that was just an alternate personality brought on by the stress of working in Rarity's boutique? Nah, bro. She knew what she was doing the whole time.
ouch. the deck's designer actually went so far as to write a blog post specifically about how this goal influenced deck design and how they went around optimizing these aggro decks. The problems that this deck brings to the table can all be confronted with the main and one friend, with the singular exception of May This Best Pet Win, which incidentally finds you the third friend that you need to confront it with the main and one other friend. There's a reason it's called Free Owl. Spoilers, you find an owl. This may sound like common sense now, but when this deck was made its initial debut, this was a groundbreaking change in deck design philosophy.
I mean, sure, you look at some of the old Rainbow Dash Wins decks, which would have been like the only aggro deck I can think of that would have been earlier than this one. And you had AT efficiency in terms of your conga line effects, but many players would sit there and run a full rack of Holly Dash over running Wildfires, not thinking about, do I actually need the 4-power blue? Do I actually need this 4-cost friend?
And it turns out that, well, at the time you may have, merely because the selection of problems wasn't that great, but it turns out here, no, you don't. In fact, the Holly Dash is normally going to be a liability. It's too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is part of why this deck was so popular. It is a very powerful deck that is very easy to play thanks to the single-minded focus it has on confronting, and the creator's optimizations that make the correct line of play obvious, if not the only line of play in some cases. While some of the power cards, like the Lady herself, Rarity Truly Outrageous, might have been difficult to get, the remainder of the deck is still fairly easy to put together even with a modest collection, and even if you substitute those expensive or hard-to-get cards out, it still retains most of its power. And I'm gonna be honest here, there's nothing quite like a 7-point turn for only 4 tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially back when you had first confront bonus.
Yeah. That was
It
great.
got real strong.
But this is only the first of a handful of decks.
What's the next big viral deck that really took off that I'm sure will send shudders through all of our spines?
It's already causing me to quake in fear, but let's take a look at this thing.
Ivory, what are we looking at here?
You were looking at Mod Mono Orange Farm. Mod could grow to 7 power in a meta with not a lot of ways to interact with mains. So when epics Beyond Nightmare Moon started to be released, challenging your own epics with a 7 power main was pretty strong strategy, to say the least. And you didn't actually need a secondary color, because by this time we were getting colorless cards. So you could leverage the strongest orange cards in the meta to beat up the troublemakers without any issue and still confront your own problems if you needed to. Score lots of points very fast. And basically, with cards like Carbo Loader, guarantee that your opponent's not winning the face-offs if they try to beat them themselves.
Yeah, this thing lived for way too long, in my opinion.
It really did. This thing had... I think this had, 3 different versions of it before it finally got superseded by Applejack.
Yeah, we had seen a colored version of Mod, which was, I think, Mod Pink Purple as well, that won Continentals in 2014.
Uh-huh.
But when Absolute Discord introduced colorless friends, most of the mod players just kind of looked at that and were like,
Yes.
This is everything I ever wanted.
Well, I mean, if we take a look at the 2 colorless cards in here, both of those things are great cards against just about any matchup. I don't want
Yep.
you drawing cards. No. And you know what? A 4th copy of Carboloader, that sounds great.
Or a copy of
Iron Will, or just on and on, right? Just everything here is great to make a copy of.
Yeah. The Carboloader. Oh, God. The Carboloader strategy was so frustrating. So, the Werefrog is asking about putting Fear itself in Mod Farm, and Mod didn't necessarily want to do that, even in the colorless version, because that required you to dedicate white to be able to confront it, and you weren't playing control. As much as the villains did a good job of disrupting your opponent, you still wanted the option to be able to start multi-problem face-offs if you had to, because you could close out the game that way. I mean, look at the number of epics this deck is running. Most modern-day farm decks will run somewhere between 12 to 15 or 21 high feathers.
High feathers.
Yeah, but not all of those were epics, just most of them.
I think it was close to 21 epics. It may have been 18.
It was 18.
Fair enough. Anyway, you still needed the ability to get those
right.
extra points. And sometimes your opponent would be pressing so aggressively that you needed to try something. Rock Slide was also 100% the starting problem you used every game.
Yeah. The getting 2 flips, it's too valuable.
Because here's the thing. As much power as Maud brought in this deck, and she brought a lot of power, your flip average was less than 4.
I mean, back in the day, that was certainly fine.
Bear in mind, the Werefrog, as you're sitting here talking about your personal experience, we are talking about back in Absolute Discord. This is 2 full sets before Bluna was ever printed.
Yeah, these decks do need to be considered in the context of the metas they were running in. Bluna, of course, was not a thing. Like, back in the day, one of this thing's biggest threats was the pile deck. We'll talk about that later.
During this time, this deck was very, very difficult to beat for most other decks. It was like getting kind of draining seeing this dominate every tournament for a while.
Yep.
Rock and Rave kind of had that effect. It was all vinyl or all mod at the top for a long time. So we've kind of beat around the bush about this already, but Ivory, what was it that made Mod Farm, and specifically Mono Orange Mod Farm, notable?
Well, honestly, very few aggressive decks could afford to dedicate enough cards to punch through villain walls. And with Rock Slide as the starting problem, it really couldn't have done it that effectively anyway. This was just too difficult to beat a lot of the time, and so players who were looking for something with a easy to understand strategy that no one really stood much of a chance against. Really, the only barrier this thing faced for players was just how expensive it is. I mean, look at these ultra rares.
Oh, yeah, let's see here. We've got...
These cards were almost $100 at this time.
Well, no, because this is actually even worse, because this is prior to the, I believe what was the EO theme decks. So, the,
Farmare was an exclusive promo.
Formare was a gameplay exclusive promo that those were like $30 a pop. There's the camo, is that camo mod here?
Yeah, camo
that's
mod.
That's another gameplay exclusive promo. Here's Carboloader.
Oh, that's the one that was 100 apiece. Plus, there's 2 Lasso Champs, 2 Iron Wills, 3 Chrissies, Nightmare Moon, more Chrissies, King Sombra.
So many URs.
Yeah, just all the ultra rares. This was not a cheap deck to run. Like,
but if this was kind of pay to win.
Kind of was.
Yeah.
If you had this and you had it built out, it was hard to deal with. It was real hard to deal with.
And villains, especially back in Premier, were very effective in terms of allowing a deck that should have been much slower to really catch up. Like, we talked about how good RTO was.
The villain sits there and says, "No, nah."
Villain not only sits there and says, nah, RTO, but also sits there and looks at you as a 7-power mod with like 3 extra flips and is like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and take my points.
Yeah, whatever. And you
So-
don't have the benefit of dilemmas either, so a troublemaker sitting on a problem is kind of difficult to deal with.
Hope you got a Snips and Snails.
Or an epic win. That works too.
Ah, that's true. Do we want to talk about the rivalry to end all rivalries?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have a subject matter expert with us here too to talk about this one.
Is this technically his pet deck for during that time?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I think if you're gonna call anything that Cheese ran a pet deck, this is gonna be it. Take it away.
Yeah. So Pile is a deck that had seen a lot of variation over the years, but the core of it has always been using DJ Pwn 3 every putting Shufflin and Pile of Presence to score points during your opponent's turn. And this costs a lot of AT, so it also has Dr. Hooves, Unblinking, and Penny Lane, Pull 'em Over, providing the AT engine necessary to fuel all of those DJs.
I mean, this was another back in the day terror.
This one
It's
was
fun.
not quite as prevalent as Mod was, but
But it's not a ton of variation. There's like the aggro control and then combo versions of it. Saw basically everything except for a farm version of it.
Yep.
I want to see Pile Farm now.
No.
I
No.
will fully admit that leading up to Continentals 2015, my playgroup and I sat there and tested 4 different color variants of Pile. We tested Pile Purple, we tested Pile White, Pile Blue, and I don't remember what the last one was. It must have been
Monopile.
It must have been Monopile. And that was before you got Dip in the Pool.
This
Eh.
deck is actually mono. The one
Yeah,
up
you
here.
sit there and look at the blue cards. It's a trap. They're not actually blue.
No, this is mono bank.
So let's talk a little bit about why this is notable.
So while Pile was a thing in the Crystal Games era, the deck really stepped onto the stage starting in Absolute Discord with the introduction of Queen Chrysalis, Identity Theft, who gave you 3 more copies of a friend, either Penny Lane or DJ. But it became the meta-defining hardliner in High Magic due to Dip in the Pool. You now had 6 extra ways to either get more points with DJ or more AT with Penny. Pile had just enough control to slow down aggro, and enough speed along with an alternate win condition to beat out control and farm. The disruption offered by making your opponents shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a few new cards is considerable as well. The deck's line of play for the first few turns can be unclear, but once a few turns have passed, it becomes easier to play. It eventually became so dominant that Penny Lane was banned. The quote here being something along the lines of, when a card is so good that you want to run 9 copies of it, there's a problem with that card. The loss of Penny Hooves' AT engine crippled the deck, and it really never regained its former glory.
Rip.
We
Good
tried. We really tried.
Also good riddance.
It was a fun deck.
It was a fun deck. The problem is it just got stupid.
The Penny Lane rule of, like you said, if you're going to run 9 copies of a card, there's an issue, has continued to ring true across the game since then. You look at decks that we'll be maybe talking about here soon that would want to cause its friends' effects to happen multiple times, and same basic concept.
Throwing some shade here, I think.
Maybe little foreshadowing.
Yeah, it's definitely foreshadowing. We'll see about the shade.
I do agree with you, though, Cheese, that the loss of Penny Lane really gimped this deck to a point where it's never going to be able to come back to where it was, even with the newer strategy that can rely on Sonic Rainboom and Surprise Party. It's just not the same.
Yeah. I mean, we tried a version that was running like every AT generator in existence, like the purple variant and the blue AT variant.
Yep.
But it just was not enough.
Nope.
Yeah, that version just, if the opponent had any disruption, it just didn't work.
Something to bear in mind, though, is that functionally speaking, all of the cards that let Pile work before, not necessarily let it work fast, but let it work, are still legal.
In Harmony.
Right, in Harmony. Sure, you can't run Penny Lane anymore, which means you're not going to run Dr. Hoobs, but the 9 copies of DJ, those are still there. The PFFs, Pile of Presents, your card draw, all these other effects, those are all still fine.
Yeah.
So it's not a deck that's completely gone. Every now and then you'll see some madman or madwoman pull it out, and
Yeah, we had a player at BabsCon the year after the ban, or I don't know if it was a full year, but whatever, the Babs after the ban. This is the player that always fully triple sleeves with
Top loaders.
Top
I
loaders.
think they were quad sleeved that year.
Yeah, but yeah, no, he brought a purple version of Pile. And it was like, I guess this doesn't work anymore.
It's like
Yep.
darn.
I like Smithers' comment here. If this deck ever gets back to where it was, we've made a mistake.
Pretty much.
Yep, agreed.
Yep.
I don't think that'll ever happen, though, because a card like Penny Lane will never get printed again.
Correct.
Now that's way up there on the list of absolutely not.
Penny Lane, but based on power. There we
Now,
No!
you joke about this, but I have a spreadsheet for the unset somewhere.
No.
Yes,
Bad.
cannons aren't instruments. Yes, they are. I'm going to use 21 of them.
Well, I'm feeling a little hungry. Let's take advantage of happy hour now and get some food.
All right, here you go. 1 order of hot wings coming right up.
Blazing just how I like them.
And Tchaikovsky, yes.
Tchaikovsky always, yes. Okay, what is Hot Wings? I don't think it's unfair to call this the last widespread successful Harmony aggro deck.
I don't think you're wrong there.
Though there were, admittedly, several variants of this blue-pink hyper aggro list, where some would issue Luna Dream Warrior in favor of DJ Pony Party Starter as your main, there was never a doubt that the faster, more fragile version running Bluna was the preferred list for many players in 2017. This thing got uptake like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah, this deck was everywhere.
Yeah,
Every tournament had like half the playing field running this deck.
people were running this. It did not matter which side of the country you're in, what level of tournament, your skill level. Just everywhere. Everywhere.
And it made sense, right? And it helped kind of define how aggro was going to play from that point forward, leveraging high-value double problem face-offs or multi-problem face-offs. It also started... I don't want to say it was the defining deck that did the Fire When Ready bonus trick, because that was used equally effectively in the exact same meta by the Stuick brothers, much to my chagrin. And yes, like Werefrog is saying, when you've got the 5 dilemmas here and you can get up to a Fire When Ready, that's a lot of bonus points.
Yeah.
For not having RTO, this deck went ludicrously fast.
I mean, it's still potentially a 7-point turnaround. It's just much less common.
Right. Now, Hot Wings did come out after the first confront rules were changed. So you
Yes.
did not score the problem bonus for being the first to confront anymore.
Right, as evidenced by the fact that it's running any dilemmas at all.
But you want to talk about how defining Ballroom Blitz was in terms of aggro decks going forward, look at the problem deck selection here. This adheres exactly to that mentality of I need to be able to confront every problem in my deck with my main and one other character.
It is 100% about action token efficiency.
That's it. And there's a reason that you saw Hot Wings everywhere in Harmony, but you didn't see the blue-pink version be nearly as successful in Core, because you lost access to a lot of these high bonus problems that were able to be confronted so efficiently.
Yeah, the draw deck is made up of mostly newer cards, but the problem deck, almost all of those are older things. I think the singular exception to that is the Trading Traditions, and let's face it, that was just a stupid good card.
Oh yeah. Move Bluna, play Angel Wings, flip Bluna, then play Prince Rutherford for free to your opponent's problem, DFO on turn 2.
And scare their entry.
Oh. Was disgusting.
Or delicious.
Very much disgusting.
No, it's delicious. It's like tasty.
So why was Hot Wings notable other than the fact that it was everywhere? Well, the play strategy was pretty simple, and the deck was relatively light on expensive cards. It required only a single ultra-rare main and 3 ultra-rare friends.
And
Everything
again,
else was super rare or below.
Yeah, and again, you can substitute those out for Rainbow Dash back in blacks. They're not quite as good, but they're still up there.
It was simultaneously easy for new players to understand the multi-problem face-off as often as possible strategy, but it was also a fulfilling enough deck for experienced players to try to optimize their action tokens and cards to the most extreme degree. You ran a razor margin in terms of how you spent your cards and how you spent your AT.
Yeah, the skill cap for this is slightly higher than I think a lot of people who picked this up realized. The number of times that someone had to be told, no, you can move Bluna between problems, between the confront.
Mm-hmm.
That works. So there was, the skill cap for this is up there.
Aggro math can be calculus level sometimes.
Yes, it can.
Don't let anyone tell you that Mono Red Burn is a brain dead deck. It's not. Perhaps with the exception of some of the emerging Fluttershy Nurturing Nature decks at the time, there wasn't a single aggro deck out there that could cause a multi-problem face-off for as few resources as Hot Wings could. It's safe to say that Hot Wings wouldn't have existed without all of the love it was shown by the Defenders of Equestria set. And even nowadays, just about any pink-blue deck is going to include the same base package of Angel Wings, Spitfire, and Belly Flop, and if it was still legal, you'd have a rack of Berry Punch Nord Swirls in there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If your deck was running pink, you were running a rack of those.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah, DE was what made this deck work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had a little foreshadowing here earlier, so maybe we can bring that to a head.
Speaking of Berry Punch and Orange Swirl.
Oh, jeez, there's a transition.
I mean, it's a slow transition. It took 1,200 milliseconds.
Ivory?
So, this is going to be the most recent example of a viral deck that we'll be talking about today. This deck is known as BRB, for Be Right Back. And the reason why it's called that is, as a pink-purple mid-range list, the design around abusing and re-triggering enters play effects as often as possible just got really crazy with this deck. Interdimensional Portal makes your friend be back in a moment to trigger once again.
And
Go
that's also
ahead.
true for what is that? It's
Discord Party Clasher?
yeah, we got the 2 Discords in here and Luna's Future.
Mm-hmm.
There's just endless ways to make something leave play and re-enter play again.
And you're absolutely correct. It is in fact endless because this deck ran Selena Blue and Discord Wrathful as well.
Yeah, it took a little bit of setup to get that to work, but you can Like once a turn, every turn, something leaves play, something enters play, and then something bad happens to your opponent.
Yep.
This is obviously a predecessor to a lot of the harder control decks running Tempest Shadow as the main, as we see more often nowadays. This version starts fast out of the gate and takes advantage of useful abilities on its friends to disrupt opponents on their turn while setting up for confronts or multi-problem face-offs on your own. This had much more of an aggro start than you would expect out of a deck that runs this much control tools.
Skystar wants to talk about shells.
I want to talk about shells.
She really does.
Can make necklaces out of shells.
Make necklaces out of shells, picture frames out of shells, and decorative wastebaskets out of shells.
Decorative waifu boxes out of shells.
Yeah,
Waste
I forgot. So, BRB was notable because this was really the first time that the game really reached critical mass in terms of the strength of Enter's play effects on friends, and how often the methods of triggering them were available. And like Hot Wings, the ultra rare count was really low. You have the 2 Discord Wrathfuls and the 2 Sticks, and and the 1 Rest in Pieces, and that's it. And 3 of those were not really that expensive at the time. The Stick was really the hardest one to come by. And it did stand above almost all others as a counter to Ambassador of Honesty Farm, which was still legal at the time, using cards like Forest Shaman, Bait and Switch, and Magical Pony.
Yeah, being able to consistently tell AJ, no, bad pony, go home, kind of good.
Yeah. Also, this deck was one of the last nails in the coffin for Berry Punch and Orange Swirl. That card had overstayed its welcome by the end of that meta.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have 9 copies of it per se, but you can play the same copy about 9 times.
Yeah, nothing was as bad-mannered as having the Berry Punch and Orange Swirl sitting there, and then your opponent's like, okay, I play this entry card.
Nope, mine.
Interdimensional portal. Okay, I play this other entry card. Interdimensional portal again.
Well, interdimensional portal now. At that
Flop.
point, you just belly flop.
Yeah,
Flop
but
your
if,
one entry into your other entry. Oh, that's most unfortunate.
but if you have the belly flop.
I mean,
What if you
sure.
had 2 belly flops? 2 IDPs and 2 belly flops. Oh my god, that would be awful.
And that's why we can't have nice things.
Also, well, we have not mentioned it yet. The fact that this deck was so fast out of the gate is part of the reason why I will continue to swear that Moondancer is an aggro card.
Well, she's not only that, she's also excellent for playing the I'm not confronting game. And then if your opponent is, a certain neon-colored deer who likes to open with searching high and low, they're going to have a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
Just a
Because
bit.
if Skystar wants to talk about shells, and she always wants to talk about shells,
You're going to have a bad time.
you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, so, Ivory, you mentioned that this is the last of the viral decks that we're really doing kind of a retrospective on. These are decks that have all existed at one point in time and have come and gone. But that doesn't mean that there's not the possibility for more viral decks in the future.
That is correct.
Or
We
what do
have
you
a-
think about that?
Well, I think that there might be something, maybe, that qualifies for viral. There is, of course, the Nurturing Nature DE Shy list that's been going around for quite a while.
Mhm.
I'd argue that maybe has viral status, but I don't think it's quite seen the same level of popularity as, say, Hot Wings. What I think might be a viral deck going forward is a list that we've seen crop up in the last couple of tournaments, where you've got Growing Confidence running around doing weird things. Now, being that this deck is potentially a very new challenger to the title, it's still young and there's still a lot of variance both in core and harmony. So we don't know exactly what the deck list looks like for these things, but they all tend to look a little something like this. What are these decks? Well, as the picture implies, there's Fluttershy Growing Confidence, and then there's a boatload of dilemmas. Once she's boosted, all those one-cost dilemmas are effectively free to play, which means you can just plow a path straight through a wall of troublemakers like they aren't even there and get a ton of points for your efforts. So, I think this is going to be notable because this style of deck has a strategy that is ridiculously straightforward, and almost all players know how to make it work. It's a slight variant of the normal aggro strategy. Confront all the problems.
And confront she shall.
Wait, hold on. I fear what you heard was confront two problems.
Is that not what you said?
What I said was confront all the problems. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in actuality, you don't need to confront them all, but it does help. After all, your opponent can't stop all of those confronts, and yellow is well equipped with tools to deal with the things that slow this strategy down. What's that? You've got a Mimics? Be a darn shame if those all went away.
No, it wouldn't. No one would be sad. Well, the control player would be sad.
Yes, the control player would be sad, and then Fluttershy here is just going to rampage freely. Now, there's also a Harmony deck, a variant of this, that asks the question, confront all the problems, you say. So, how about, I don't know, 11 or 12 problems in one turn? And as a result, the deck can potentially operate as a semi-combo deck that actually just wins the game on a single blowout turn.
As soon as your opponent's defenses are down, bam.
If you
There's a reason that we have the meme of pages saved somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think I have that handy, unfortunately.
The JoJo reference.
Yes.
Yeah, if the Growing Confidence player moves both problem text farther away from each other, it means that it's time for a blowout.
You're about to have a bad time?
Yeah.
Unless they mathed wrong.
Yeah. This is a deck that if you spend all of your action tokens and go into their turn with nothing saved, they're probably sitting there rubbing their hooves together with a little smirk on their face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, I think it's also worth discussing why our prediction here might be wrong. The core versions of this deck don't have Industrial Revolution to make truly concerning numbers of snakes into problems. And that makes confronting more than about 3 to 5 problems at once significantly more difficult. With the reduced number of problems, it also isn't possible to go 0 to 15 in a single turn in a core variant. And I feel there's a lot of judgment to when and how many dilemmas you play.
Yeah, we see some lists that are running as few as 6, some that'll go up to 10 or 11. Core is really varied on what this deck does. There's a yellow-white version, which did well in Seattle, though I think that one was slightly Harmony-based. There's Blue Fairy's yellow-pink version. There's the 4-color version that Ivory and I have both run, which is currently linked in chat, that takes advantage of cards like Pegasus Royal Guard. And there's probably even a blue Pegasi-focused version in there.
Oh, that sounds fun and annoying.
Right?
Right. And the variance also is a potential obstacle to the viral adoption of this, because there are currently many different options, but that's also a reason that it might become viral, because one of those options might just prove to be better. The difficulty in playing some of these, as I was mentioning earlier about when and how many dilemmas you play out, it can be very important, because if you misjudge that call, you're going to lose so much momentum that you might have a problem regaining it and coming back.
Yeah, that's true. The math on these decks is very tricky, and sometimes you have to decide how much are you willing to risk on draws off your dilemmas before you get your full board set up. What colors are you willing to splash into? Are you willing to run a dilemma that has 3 requirement in a secondary color, which is going to make you rage inevitably every single game?
Yep, that can be difficult.
All things worth considering. But all decks that are also worth watching. And
Yep.
we'll see what comes with growing confidence in the coming months. I would not be surprised for her and her various variants. Yes. To have a strong showing at Continentals this year.
It's going to be interesting, to say the least.
But before we get to Continentals, we've got to talk about OnlineCon.
Well, as we've mentioned in the past, unfortunately, BabsCon is not going to be running on account of this whole viral thing. So we're going to run an online version in its place, much like Ponyfest Online did. Why not for pony cards? So this document is linked in chat. And if you want to sign up, there's links right there. By the way, Tabletop Simulator, one of the popular methods for playing online, is currently 50% off on Steam right now. So if you're looking to pick up a copy of that, there's probably not a better time.
Oh, that's pretty cheap. Not bad.
No, it is not.
So as we prep for OnlineCon, which will have both a Harmony Constructed tournament and a draft event, maybe it's worth talking about some draft strategies for the cards we're going to see. As I believe this is going to be one of the first times that players will have a chance to draft with Leaders and Legends cards outside of a cube environment.
Yep. If we look at the online draft thing here, you'll see that the pack selection here will be a pair of Leaders and Legends packs, a Friends Forever pack, and a Sequestrian Beyond pack. It will be using the standard limited rules, which means that the provided cards are from Defenders of Equestria, Sequestrian Beyond, and Leaders and Legends, with the normal set of problems here. It'll be doing 3 to 4 rounds as normal, and because this is online and occasionally Octagon or TTS is a little bit more difficult to work with, the rounds will be slightly longer. That will also be true of the Harmony Constructed event, which is notable because it is the first event, as far as we're aware, that will allow Constructed with sideboards.
Woo sideboards?
Woo sideboards.
So with that in mind,
we've already talked about how to sideboard. Let's talk a little bit about draft.
get your entry.
Well, that's the obvious thing. We've talked about draft a little bit in the past. But a couple of things that I think are worth calling out here, specifically with this one, is that Buckball Strategy is a provided card. You can guarantee 2 power of your main's color right at the start of the game. And this matters a lot when you're doing entry calculations because it might make a color viable when you have no entry or 1-rec cards for it.
That's very true. The Werefrog asks, can you sideboard in draft? You can sideboard in draft.
But it
You
only...
must still designate your sideboard as a maximum of 5 cards, however. Bear in mind, though, that in draft, you are also able to completely reconstruct your deck in between games.
Yes, but you cannot do that after your opponent has already put their main and starting problem into play.
Correct.
Yes. The other thing I think is worth calling out here is the entire Professor cycle. Even if they're not in your color, they're probably worth snapping up. Suffice to say that these are not going to be making it around the table. 1, because they're entry, and 2, because Dear Celestia, the value. The value.
Yeah. If I get past a Pinkie Pie Professor of Laughter, I don't care if I'm playing pink.
You're pulling that?
That's like... I would not call it a stretch to say that some of the professors are pack 1, pick 1 material.
I mean, that's a pretty strong statement. But, I mean, Pinkie
some-
Pie is up there.
For
Some
that
of the
one, yes,
professors.
I would say it is.
Yeah, I think Pinkie is a windmill slam. I don't think Rarity is, but if you're running a white deck and you can get a handful of those, like, people are gonna... That's gonna mess some people up if they don't have as much space at home as they thought they did.
Rainbow Dash is decent value, and if yellow for some reason is open, then obviously Fluttershy can do stupid things since there is a pretty good critter package.
Yep. As the Werefrog is noting here, as long as your deck has 30 cards in it when you start the game, sounds good to me.
Yep. So outside of the Professor cycle, let's take a look at some other cards that you might be more likely to see in draft that you should seriously consider picking up.
Alright, so the main's a little bit of a cheater here, but I think one that I feel is worth calling out separately is Scootaloo Half Pint Dynamite. So, Talented may not be very easy to use in Limited, but all of the blue events in Leaders and Legends are really good, and this is free movement. I mean, that's always going to be good. It's also a 3-power card, and it's only 1 blue rec, so just all good things.
All the yes?
All the yes.
I'd agree. I think of all of the talented cards that you have reliable access to in a limited event, Scootaloo is up there at the top. What else we got?
Oh. Well, we'll get to that one, Werefrog. We'll get to that one. Alright. Yeah, who else we got? Who else we got here? So, myself, I'm sitting here thinking Moody Root here is probably also a good one. Because he's a pretty decent way to just remove a body from your opponent's side of the problem. And that'll give you an edge in a problem face-off. Because he's still stubborn and he still counts. So you can't use him to play the I'm not confronting game. But, you know, I like points. I like winning face-offs.
There's also a lot of obvious synergy with Moody Root and Applejack Work Hard, Play Hard. You want to try to keep as many of your opponent's characters exhausted as possible, just to make things extra difficult for them, and give you as many options with AJ. And Moody Root is one of the best enablers for that. You just gotta find a way to get into that wreck.
Yeah, so speaking of keeping stuff exhausted, we've got Apple Bloom up here as well. She's going to be good at that.
Yeah, Apple Bloom really benefits from one of the particular orange events in this set. But I mean, if Charred Chapters is coming your way and you're already dedicated to work hard, play hard, yeah.
You should probably take that.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, we're getting down into pink. I know what's
Yay, pink.
I know what's coming.
What do you mean you know what's coming?
I know what's
Clear
coming.
sky, obviously.
No, none of this garbage. We got Silverstream here. Look at this adorable little smile. She just wants to see what you're doing. Stop. Hey, can I stick my fingers in there? What is this? You're not allowed to do anything. Because she's too busy, like,
Getting all up in your business.
getting all up in your business. Now, like, this is a good card in Constructed, and this just gets silly in Limited because it's like, hi, yes, I can just arbitrarily make you spend a whole bunch of resources to either get rid of this card or spend a whole bunch of resources to over-confront that problem. And you never know when I'm going to decide that I really want to see what's up in your business right now.
Yeah, this is like Ghost Eccentric 3, in that if you have it at a problem, your opponent kind of has to treat it like you're going to use it, because going after a confront and banking on the fact that the player's not going to pop Silverstream is
Gonna have a
usually
bad time.
bad. Yeah.
But if it's just a single confront, whatever. And then you pop out with the hasty.
Yeah.
Well, it's still annoying.
Honorable mention at a higher rarity is Lyra as well, who is just stupid amounts of value if you can keep 6 cards in your hand, as you then have an agile eccentric 3 friend.
Like, it's
But she is also a rare though, so
Yeah. unlikely to see one of her, but might get a bad surprise if she goes around the table.
Yep. Let's see what else we got.
I don't know. In purple, I'm not sure there's a whole lot that's too exciting here, but we're also probably overlooking some rather fun combinations you can get with multiple cards, not just in single cards.
Yeah, Ocellus is not terrible, as it does give you a method of AT generation that can be pretty nice. I think a lot of purple's strength in this set comes from non-friend cards, though.
I mean, that's normally been purple's gimmick, is the event shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see what white has to offer here. Too much.
It has too much to offer.
Now, there we go. Scroll bar got a little bit hasty there. Yeah, Cozy Glow she's going to be real annoying because she brings stuff back. She is, however, a rare, so she's going to be a little bit harder to find.
Mr. and Mrs. Hoofington are irritating.
I mean, that's a vexing right there. Yikes. I mean, that's kind of the same thing as a Silverstream. It's just, I think, more extreme to the point where it's just like, you can't get around this. You have to just remove this.
Right, and how bad are you going to feel using your removal on a 1-power friend?
Medium-sized oof.
Yeah.
The rarity is, as I said earlier, potentially a ringer, because, again, if your home limit goes down to, like, 2 or 1, ugh. Alright. Let's see what we got in yellow. Alright. I mean, aside from some Kirans, they're all cool.
Many of the Kurans do have powerful effects. Fern Flare is not a bad option if you manage to go deep into yellow.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you're unlikely to get critical mass of Pukwudgies, even if that would be absolutely hilarious.
Pukwudgie.
Yona is definitely a strong enabler.
Yeah.
If you can manage to pick up some of the critter token generating cards.
Yeah, it does require a little bit of building around, but if you know you're going for that line of play, could be up there.
Yep. Okay, I think you had one multicolor card in particular that you wanted to reference, but that may not be a friend here, so we may have to come back to that later.
Ah, there are 2 multicolor cards,
Oh.
in fact. And one of them, I think this was actually one of your nominations here.
Which one is this?
Crazy Cat Lady.
This one right here.
Ah, yes.
And I think I've got to agree with this in retrospect because although this is expensive, this can move an awful lot of stuff. As this card alone might actually be enough to cause a DFO. And that's the kind of value that turns games around in Limited.
Yeah, 4 AT cause a DFO in the mid to late game is very, very efficient in Limited. And with only 2 rec, that means that if you can get into the secondary color with either one of the professors or with a rainbow generator, you're in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
Potassium works as well. Ivory,
Well,
I think you had a...
Well, to be perfectly honest here, like, Potagium is just good. Like, let's take a moment and step back here.
It's a good
Like,
card.
It is
well,
a good card.
Yes, this card is good in Constructed, it's good in Limited, it's just, yes. It's color agile entry, it flips for 4, it potentially contributes 3 power if you're in the same color. Like, there's nothing that you don't like about this. I mean, other than the fact that he's a traitorous changeling, but hey, no one's perfect.
It's
You'll
nothing
get over it.
Yeah. You can get over it. The rest of us are fine with it. Neon Bambi power.
Yeah.
How about the one just above Potagium there? I know it's a little less likely to see it, but Ivory? You had some thoughts on this card?
Well, I mean, if you can pull off the colors and maybe get some token generation, you could very easily get this to start snowballing really hard, even in Limited.
Yeah, it takes a little bit more effort, and that is a rare, but I mean, that's what rares are in Limited. If you can get that to work, that's going to win you the game.
Oh, hey, I see my favorite card in Limited coming up here.
Your favorite?
My favorite.
It is stupid good.
The value of this card
I'm
is...
gonna go out on a limb and guess formation flying here.
You would be correct.
It is some value.
Yeah, this is movement for 1 and then more movement later. Ew, it's really good. Oh, and by the way, this will trigger Scootaloo as well.
It can also trigger your Rainbow Dash main. So if you have a Scootaloo, and you have a Rainbow Dash main, and you play Formation Flying, you can move Rainbow Dash, which will move a 2-power character, and you can move Scootaloo. And then at the end of your turn, you can move another character. Gross.
That seems like some value for 1 token. That's like a lot of value.
1 AT move 3 of your characters. I'm sorry, 4 of
4?
your characters.
Yes, there we go. Thank you.
Hey, that other blue event's not too shabby either.
No, it's not. I mean, that also triggers Scootaloo, and it's soft removal. And in some cases, it might be hard removal too. That's just kind of good. I find this funny that this makes Half Pint Dynamite work.
It's almost as if Scootaloo didn't listen to the lecture at all.
Or she's running away from Spitfire. Why not both?
But I didn't listen. Speaking of making some of the talented cycle work, great seedling tracks. You want to talk about a power swing. Great seedling tracks with Apple Bloom in play. If they already have an exhausted character because you have a Moody Root, man. You're getting a lot of power out of that.
Yeah. I think you were looking at Cutie Mark swap as well.
Cutie Mark swap is potentially very good because it allows you to take advantage of the effect that your opponent is always luckier than you are. And therefore draws the super desirable card. So when your opponent inevitably drops, oh, I don't know. What's a big threatening card in this set?
Limestone. Limestone's up there.
Limestone's pretty good.
Hey, I'll trade you a critter token for that limestone.
Or like a Hufar. Or no, wait, I think Hufar is a cloud effect, so that does not work.
No. And you'd have to have a real interesting situation to take advantage of that. But bear in mind, this is an immediate, so if they play something key, you can take it away.
Ooh, how about a Lyra? How about if your opponent manages to find a Lyra?
I mean, then you're both playing mono pink, and that's just going to be a recipe for sadness.
That's great. Or Tricorn. There you go. Your opponent pulls an Ember and somehow makes it work.
I mean, if they drop a Tricorn, you have problems anyway.
Terrible.
Let's see, what else we got? Power Shift is kind of good.
Power Shift is...
It says
Go ahead.
immediate. Of course it's good.
It says immediate and move.
It does. The danger with this is that it only works depending on the power, so you don't necessarily have the ability to set a large card, except, oh look, what's this right here? It's a 6. Although you are giving up the token gain at that point, but...
And it's also a rare. There is something that's worth noting, though, as well, and that is that purple is going to be very likely to be able to flip its main without having to build your deck, like, super heavily around that, because you're not likely to get a lot of duplicate cards in draft. Unless you're using Hithrock's algorithm. And then you only see the same 4 cards for, like, 4 packs. Thanks, Hithrock.
I mean, that's kind of our fault, but...
I mean, sure, it is. But that also means that you don't need to spend a lot of action tokens playing the lower power, lower requirement cards that many decks have to, because Twilight's likely to flip early. So you can start playing higher power purple friends, which means that your flip average is going to be higher as a result. Mm-hmm. And as much as I was giving Hithrock a little bit of gaff there about the draft, it certainly worked out advantageously last week, so no serious complaints here. I like 5 Winonas.
Wow.
Dog tribal.
Dog
Tribal.
Good doggo.
Terrible.
Best girl.
Bork.
Cockatrice Migration and Creepy Crawlies can both support a yellow strategy. It just depends on if you have the other cards to take advantage of it. Which really means, do you have a Yona? Do you have a Pegasus Royal Guard? Do you have a Fluttershy Professor of Kindness? And hey, Hypnotized by Fear is not a bad card either. That's also an uncommon. If you want to play Control, and you can get into white, that card is just rude.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a little bit more rude if it was immediate, but hey, that's still pretty rude. I'm gonna borrow your thing and then get rid of it later.
Yep.
It's not bad.
How about a couple of resources?
Well, let's just start with all the dilemmas. The pink one in particular is good for about the same reasons. It's great when you want to play the I'm Not Confronting game. Daring Do's Safari Hat.
Maybe.
Also pretty good. Like, Swift is just broken and limited. Like, this may cost 2 to get this thing out, but ooh.
You get the power boost, you get the Swift. If you manage to go into the accessory, like, sub-theme, it's pretty good, so... Yeah, not bad. How about that high T down there? I like action tokens.
I mean, so does your opponent, but...
Sure, but here's the thing to keep in mind, right? With high T and constructed, it's a little less desirable, because your opponent is more easily able to play around okay, I need to save 0 action tokens, or I need to, keep myself at an even number. And they can usually do that by just paying to draw a card. In Limited, your decks are much smaller. If you're paying to draw a card every turn to try to take advantage of your opponent giving you back an AT,
yeah, I mean, that also means you're giving up a token on your next turn for questionable uses. So there's some fun mind games I think you can have here.
Yeah, there's a possibility that you play a high T, your opponent draws and keeps himself at an even number of action tokens, and you just manage to make your plays without using high T anyway. If your opponent spends 2 AT to draw needlessly, then you've come close to breaking even.
I mean, that's just... yeah, that's still a net win for you.
There's also the rather funny fact that, and let me double check this before I say it, it's going to be very difficult if you are playing against a Fluttershy Growing Confidence player for them to be able to regularly keep themselves in range of high T. Because every time one of their problems leaves play, they are forced to gain an AT and draw a card.
Oh, that's spicy. That's real spicy.
Yeah, you have to be
Yeah.
careful with Growing Confidence in Limited.
Yeah.
How about another rare resource that's down here? One that you don't even need to play. Yeah, that's true.
If you can get like a 6 or 8 power friend out there, that'll probably confront just about anything on its own. Gotta be very careful though, because it might get scared or otherwise removed. It's a bit of an investment, but might be worth it. Yeah, this is... Golden Parachute is a rare, but at the same time, this is great because you don't even need to be in the colors for this to be useful. Just whatever, it gets into your discard pile, and then you've got the ability to shield a friend from getting messed with. It's great.
All right, how about 2 more to wrap up here? We didn't do a Troublemaker yet. Let's do a Troublemaker.
We also haven't done much resource hate.
Well, why not both? We've got this Winterzilla right here. It's a Troublemaker, and it removes resources. Yep.
Resource removal in Limited is rare, but still useful a lot of the times.
And it's often overlooked, too. That's one of the things I highly recommend about building a Limited deck. Just try to find a piece of resource removal, because it may not be real fun to play, but the scrunch you're going to get out of your opponent when you do is going to make it 100% worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Cozy Glow is also pretty annoying. It's a good point.
Tree of Harmony is also not bad. It's pseudo point acceleration,
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
A little bit of farming for yourself. I mean, Troublemakers are just good in general because of the aggro-ish nature of this, but those 2 in particular I think are worth calling out. And then one last one, which I think is a little bit of a curveball.
Yeah, spoilers. If there's a Grogar, you should probably pick that.
Yes, but that's also an ultra rare. And
yeah,
although we're not playing the value game here, the ultra rares are still kind of good. Just saying.
Unless it's like the last pack, that's not in your color.
Yeah. The one kind of oddball pick I think here is Cramped Caravan. This is great if you're running a white aggro deck. It's 2 bonus and it makes your opponent's stuff easier to confront. I believe this also makes their dilemmas easier for you to confront.
sure does.
Yep.
So, not a bad option, gonna be honest.
I'm going to give an honorable mention to Mystery at Hope Hollow, because there's a reason that card is not allowed to be proxied.
That's fair. That's fair. then go ahead and just pick out a troublemaker. Or the colorless entry that you need.
Correct.
All the entry.
So there's a couple considerations. Hopefully that will help make your drafting experience next weekend that much smoother. For now, that's going to wrap up our discussion on these two topics for today. We would like to give a big shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your regular support. If you aren't currently a patron and you enjoy what we do, please do consider donating. Doing so enables us to continue making content like this. If you have comments or questions you'd like to send our way, or if you're just interested in hearing about what we're working on for the future, there are many ways you can stay in contact. We have our Patreon as mentioned previously, but you can also reach us through Facebook, Twitter, and email. And patrons at or above the $5 per month level also get access to our Slack channel where you can chat live with us any day, anytime. If you are looking to watch any of our previous videos, including tournament recordings, you can find them on our YouTube channel linked in the sidebar. And please make sure to subscribe so we can have a channel URL that is a little easier to remember.
You are busy going absolutely ballistic about this because we're like, what, three away?
Three subscribers away. And if you're looking for more content on YouTube, stay tuned because there's new stuff coming soon. So keep an eye on that. With all that said, thank you to each and every one of our viewers, both here now and watching this recording later. We are, as always, Commentary is Magic. I am, as always, Grandpaws.
Big Cheese.
A lack of hissing known as Aracat, and...
Even more hissing Ivory Starlight.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week for OnlineCon 2020. Stay safe. Wash your hands.
See ya.
Please.
Later.